Can I Not Marry audio web novel chapter 53, surprise or thriller? Oh. On the flight back from Italy, Du Lacey recalled all the ups and downs of their honeymoon. She suddenly felt like she experienced a Hollywood blockbuster thriller. If their plane were to crash, then the box office will be doubled. When we return, quit that job of yours. Leanne Jun suddenly said. Du Lacey suddenly remembered that she still had a job. You don't need to remind me, I was prepared to quit anyways. Feeling pleased, Leanne Jun nodded. This thick-skinned girl finally have a bit of self-knowledge. Which president's wife will sell condoms? If spoken to others it'll be a disgrace. She didn't expect Du Lacey to lower her head and muttered. Others work 5 days will get 2 days of rest. However I work for 2 days and rest for 5 days. I'm too embarrassed. So it turns out it's due to this reason. Did you buy the gifts? He asked. Du Lacey regained her senses and blinked in doubt. What gifts? He knew she forgot. Leanne Jun felt somewhat helpless. The gifts for your parents and also my mother, Grandma, that very hot-tempered friend of yours. Certainly you couldn't have forgotten, right? Who said? Du Lacey coolly glared at him. Don't underestimate your wife. Don't mention your mother and my mother. She even included Auntie Wu, housekeeper Yu and even Lao Fang she've prepared. Leanne Jun stared at her in a daze. Suddenly he had an ominous feeling. What did you buy for my mother? Not telling you. I think it's best if you use the cosmetics we brought from the mall yesterday as a gift for my mother. President, can't you be more creative? Du Lacey gave Leanne Jun a disdainful look. Oh, you can relax. Anyway, I will give your mother a surprise. Surprise. He only hopes it's not a fright instead. Whether or not Leanne Anna will be surprised, she does not know. However Lao Fang really suffered from a fright. Young madam, what is this? Lao Fang asked, staring at the unidentified object in the black box, while his entire body trembled. Gloves. Du Lacey replied. Lao Fang wiped the sweat on his forehead. The style of these gloves is very unique. That's right. Du Lacey nodded. It's made out of mouse hair. Oh, Lao Fang, don't faint. Lao Fang. Leanne Jun sighed a sigh of relief. When Lao Fang was 5 years old a mouse bit his toes. From then on as long as he sees anything related to mouse, he would be like this. Du Lacey had a face of injustice, but this is a koipu. Leanne Jun, it's the same. Du Lacey was silent. Lao Fang, so it turns out you're a Doraemon. In consideration of Comrade Lao Fang's losing his combat effectiveness, the president had to personally drive instead and send his idiotic wife home. At the entrance to the house, another 3 unlucky eggs came out. Young madam. Seeing Du Lacey, Auntie Wu was very affectionate. Elder brother, elder sister. Liang also followed closely behind. It's been a week since Du Lacey last saw any acquaintances. Suddenly seeing so many, her mood greatly improved. She hurriedly took out the gifts she prepared. Liang is so well behaved. This is the gift sister have brought for you. What is this? Liang's big watery eyes stared at the round object for a long time. Suddenly he was enlightened. It's a ball. I don't want it. When Du Lacey wanted to stop what Liang was going to do, it was too late. He have thrown the round object to the ground. Elder sister, why doesn't this ball bounce? Because this is not a ball, it's a crystal ball. Greater than ______. Why did you buy a crystal ball for a 7-year-old child? Is your head made of crystal? It's all right. Here Grandma have a Sun Wukong mask. Auntie Wu hurriedly tried to ease the situation. Du Lacey's mouth was fuming. Auntie Wu, that's not Sun Wukong. It's no. Auntie Wu carefully observed the red Tagiva mask within her hands. Suddenly she was enlightened. Judging the glaze you're giving me, it must be Baozheng turning into Sun Wukong, who told them to have such red faces. Du Lacey's mouth fummed without moving. In fact, this is actually. What is it? Auntie Wu yelled. Surely it's Sun Wukong, right? Du Lacey swallowed the words she wanted to say back down her throat and sighed. It's Baozheng. Just when Du Lacey couldn't be any more embarrassed, housekeeper Yu suddenly said, Young master, young madam, it's been hard on yous. Housekeeper Yu. Du Lacey's eyes lit up. She stared at old Yu's thick dark hair, and regained her spirits. Finally there's a gift that will be useful. She excitedly ran up to him and stuffed a bag into old Yu's hands. This is for you. Young madam, you are too kind. Old Yu was overwhelmed by an unexpected favor. How can I accept this? Don't be polite, it's nothing too valuable. Du Lacey forthrightly waved her hand. I'm telling you, this is a really good hair conditioner, ensuring that your hair will become darker and shinier. Old Yu's smile was solidified on his face. What's wrong? Du Lacey appeared puzzled. It couldn't be she gave the wrong gift again. No. Nothing, Old Yu bitterly smiled. At this time, Liang suddenly shouted, Uncle Yu's hair is good, black and shiny, he can also take it down from his head. Suddenly a gust of wind blew, almost blowing off the wig on housekeeper Yu's head. Du Lacey turned her head back to look at Leanne Jun and said in frustration, then, the skincare products that we brought yesterday is still here. Due to changing the unsophisticated and old-fashioned red pajamas into branded cosmetics, Lian unfortunately didn't become the fifth unlucky egg like old Yu, Auntie Wu, Liang Liang and Lao Fang. Once her mother-in-law was in a good mood, naturally the way she spoke also softened considerably. A few days later it'll be our Jun's grandpa death anniversary, be prepared, when the time comes we'll go together. Oh, is her mother-in-law speaking to her? It's the gentle Du Lacey immediately returned to the room in a joyful mood, and at once reported the good news to the president. Your mother just praised me for choosing good cosmetics. Lian Jun had his head lowered checking through mails and casually, a reply. She appeared very happy. I think your mother doesn't seem to hate me as much anymore. Du Lacey continued excitingly. Your mother asked me to prepare, in a few days go to see your grandpa, when the time comes, I'll be sure to put on a good performance, make your mother fall completely in love with me. Say, what should I wear? Would wearing a skirts look too frivolous? However, wearing trousers would be too conservative. Repeatedly being interrupted, Lian Jun finally found it unbearable and reminded her, I'm looking through mails. Du Lacey was aware of her own excitement was affecting the president's work. Quickly she embarrassedly poked her tongue out and withdrew to one side. Speaking of which, the president abruptly stopped all his work to accompany her for a 7 days break to Italy. Now that they have returned his work must have piled up, right? Du Lacey was lying in bed, with both of her hands under her chin staring at the president's silhouette in a daze. The soft lighting hitting his face, outlining his perfect profile. Black fluorescence emitted by the computer screen was sparkling. They say serious working men are the most pleasing to the eye, indeed as expected it's not false. Merely staring at the president, she could do this for a lifetime. You staring at me like this, I can't concentrate on work. Lian Jun removed his eyes from the computer screen, and helplessly stared Du Lacey. Du Lacey made a face of injustice. You told me not to speak so I'm merely using my eyes to stare you, how did I bother you? She didn't know how tempting she appeared wearing pajamas while lying in bed with her partially collarbone exposing. It was hard not to arouse his sexual desires, it simply made it hard for him to think straight. Come here, Lian Jun turned off the computer, and turned to face her. What's wrong? Du Lacey had a confused expression. Lian Jun beckoned with his hands, come here. Oh, she used her hands and feet. Like a kitten she crawled from the bed, widening her collar it exposed more of her enticing chest. Climbing closer, Lian Jun stretched out his hands and dragged her into his arms. The poor defenseless kitten headlong into the wolf's foraging range. Du Lacey finally panicked. Have you finished going through the mails? I'm tired. I'll look through the rest tomorrow. He buried his face into the long hair of her neck, sniffing her scent. She had just taken a bath, so she smelt extra sweet, causing one wanting to take a bite. His palm made its way into her pajamas collar, touching certain parts of her body that was partly hidden and partly visible. Du Lacey only felt a shock and blurt out, You haven't taken a bath. Oh, he stopped the movements in his hand. Du Lacey quickly nodded like a chicken pecking its rice. Lian Jun nodded in agreement, let's go and wash up. Then he stood up and carried her to the bathroom. Suddenly, an ominous feeling hung over her heart. She shouted, I already bath. You can bath again, he said, and placed her into the bathtub. Others call it digging your own grave. Du Lacey calls it self-discharging the bath water. The warm water soaked into her pajamas, touching every part of her body. Du Lacey was anxious. Don't waste water. Lian Jun nodded, so he also climbed into the bathtub, so that's why we should bath together instead. President, you are a bit too savvy. T_______T Du Lacey was grieving her own misfortune. However, when she looked up, she was confronted with the president's chest, the wet material stick closely to his skin, as a result undoubtedly revealing his strong chest. Through the mist-water vapor, Du Lacey consciously swallowed her saliva. At this point, he has reached out his hands and began to take off her clothes. Don't. Du Lacey hastily tried to stop him. Wifey, you like taking a bath with clothes on. President, don't utter such nonsense. The poor clothing one by one dropped to the bathroom floor. First it was hers, and then it was his. Finally they honestly and nakedly faced each other. Du Lacey's cheeks reddened like a rose, exquisitely dainty and ravishingly beautiful rose. But this hero who plucked the rose didn't pity upon seeing the tenderness of rose, he will only ravage, and ravage again. Who told Du to become this tender rose? That night, swaying in the midst of a raging storm, the rose was deflowered.